Welcome back, my favorite listeners. Today we have typical daddy, we have to talk story. Thanks for this story to the user Cindy TV. Grab a coffee or tea, and let's start. Jason reflects. I sat at my desk thinking back 30 years to our wedding and honeymoon, and some of the best memories of my life. As I reflect upon these cherished memories of our honeymoon in Hawaii with Maggie, I'm overcome by a profound sense of nostalgia and gratitude. It was an extraordinary and truly magical time that will forever hold a special place in my heart. From the very beginning, it felt as though we had stepped into an enchanted realm that washes away the cares of the world, leaving a serenity words can't describe. Walking hand in hand along the pristine beaches of Waikiki, the gentle waves lapping at our feet, we were swept away by the sheer beauty of our surroundings. The fragrant scent of plumeria permeated the air, serving as a constant reminder of the romance and tranquility that enveloped us. Yet, it was not merely the captivating scenery that made our honeymoon unforgettable. It was the experiences we shared that etched themselves into the fabric of our souls. Exploring the lush rainforests and stumbling upon hidden waterfalls was a revelation of Mother Nature's grandeur. Standing together, we marveled at the raw power and magnificence surrounding us. Our villa in Maui, perched atop cliffs, gifting us with panoramic vistas that seemed to stretch into eternity. Each sunset was a masterpiece, painting the sky with vivid hues, and in those precious moments as we held each other close, our hearts were filled with an overwhelming sense of love and commitment to each other. And the nights. Oh, the nights were a symphony of romance, beginning with dining by the flickering glow of candlelight on the beach beneath a canopy of stars, as we savored exquisite flavors of fresh seafood and island delicacies. Yet, it was the tender gaze in Maggie's eyes that made those evenings truly magical. Hawaii became more than a destination, it became the embodiment of our love story, a chapter filled with cherished memories and shared dreams, made just for the two of us. As I reminisce about our honeymoon, I am once again humbled by the beauty and depth of our connection during that time. Hawaii served as a catalyst for our love, nurturing our bond and providing us with moments of unparalleled joy and serenity. It is with heartfelt gratitude that I cherish the precious memories we created together in this haven of romance. Now, 30 years later, lost in my thoughts, my secretary came into my office and watched me stare out the window for a moment, then asked, Jason, what or who do we thank for your good mood lately? Have you won the lottery or something? Care to share? At that moment I realized that I had been smiling and indeed had been in a good mood for the last 2 weeks. I explained that my wife had become extra attentive and loving lately, and for the first time in many years I was appreciated and loved. I finished by saying I felt like I was on a second honeymoon, and for the first time in years looked forward to being with her all the time, and couldn't get her out of my head. During these last 2 weeks, I found myself calling my Maggie several times a day just to hear her voice, telling her how much I loved her and missed her. I was acting like a love-struck high school teenager, but I didn't care. I was happy again, and didn't want it to stop. Maggie and I had a strong marriage, but a 30-year relationship can become less exciting and more mundane. But for the last 2 weeks Maggie has been frisky, wanting to have sex almost every night, and doing things to me she hadn't done for years. I never once had any suspicion or thought that the change in her affection was anything other than a rebirth of our marriage. I planned to surprise her with a romantic evening, and left work early. With a smile on my face, I paid for the 24 roses at the florist, and filled out the heart-covered card expressing my love, then stopped at the liquor store, and bought her favorite bottle of wine, along with a large box of chocolate-covered cherries, her favorite. Tonight, I was not just going to tell Maggie how much I loved her, how happy she's made me, but I was going to surprise her with a 7-day cruise I purchased for us to celebrate our love. Smiling, and with a spring in my step, I entered my house through the garage. Walking up the steps to the kitchen, I saw Brandy, our 29-year-old daughter, instead of my loving wife Maggie, sitting at our kitchen table. I smiled as I kissed her on her forehead and said hello. Hi baby, where's your mom? I've always heard every guy say that these next words are the most difficult to hear from a woman, but until you actually hear them, you'll never really understand. Daddy, we have to talk. Chapter 2. 2 weeks earlier. Brandy, I'm not sure about this. I love your dad so much, and I'm afraid going through with this will hurt him. Mom, Dad loves you and he will understand. I mean, you said it yourself, you need something more than you've been getting, and Dad's not getting any younger. I know he will understand your needs and let you have this one-time thrill. Brandy, there's no way I can face your father and tell him I have a date with another man. I just couldn't do that. Then let me do it. Alexander will be expecting you at the restaurant at 7 p.m., and you'll be ready to leave by 6 p.m. I'll be here when Daddy gets home and explain everything to him, and you will have that experience you've been craving. Honey, I know I accepted this state, but I'm having second thoughts. It's not right and I shouldn't go. How can I face your dad for the next 2 weeks knowing I've accepted a date with another man? Well, may I suggest you say nothing and you show him how much you love him during those 2 weeks. Make him know he has nothing to worry about, and when I explain things, he will understand that what you're doing isn't about love and only some new companionship and a little fun sex. Reach out to him and rock his world, and when I explain the situation that night, he will welcome you back with open arms. Trust me, Daddy loves you and would do anything for you. He's always given you what you wanted, and that's how he shows his love for you, Mom. I guess so, and maybe you're right. I mean, it's just one date, and it's not like I'm leaving your dad for another man. A night of fun after 30 years shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to show your dad just how wonderful he is, and how much I love him every night until my date night, and then I'll strive to make him the happiest man in the world when I return to him. Mom, just make him feel loved and appreciated. He's a great guy and he'll give you this one experience. Now, I need to leave and get home to start dinner for Mike. Thanks baby, and tell Mike I said hello. When are you two going to give us some grandchildren? Soon, we've been talking about it, and we plan to start working on it in a few months, Brandy said before leaving for home. Maggie sat alone in the art studio Jason built for her behind their house in front of her recent project. She was struggling with her creativity lately, as the thought of being with another man had been weighing on her mind. Guilt blocked her creative juices until Maggie considered Brandy's words, and suddenly her brushes came back to life, covering the canvas with vibrant colors and emotive scenery. Suddenly she felt confident that she was doing the right thing for herself, and that her husband would give her this experience. She found herself talking to herself as she sat alone, feeling peace overcome her guilt. Jason might be mad at first, but I know I can make him understand. I do love that man, and he's been such a great husband and father. I'm going to be the best wife ever and show him just how much I love him. Love Jason begins. The first night of my plan to shower him with love, I wore his favorite baby doll nightgown after taking a shower, fixing my hair and spending some extra time on my makeup, and greeted Jason in my high heels and nightie when he came in the house, and led him straight up to the bedroom where I undressed him. After unbuckling his belt and pulling down his trousers, I surprised him with something I hadn't done in years. His smile made me feel warm and happy to be able to do this for him, and I wondered why I haven't been doing this all along. He took me in his arms and with a big smile, told me how much he loved me. Maggie, that was the best welcome home I've had in years. What's the occasion, baby? I just wanted to show you how special you are and how much I love you. Did you like it? I loved it, and it's been so long I forgot just how much I missed it. That made me feel good, and I pulled him down onto the bed with me and we kissed for several minutes. He eagerly removed my wet panties and took me like a wild man, fucking me for the next 10 minutes. After 3 amazing orgasms, he erupted inside my pussy. This was the best sex we've had in years, and I started to rethink my date with Alexander. For the next 2 weeks, our sex life had reached new levels of excitement, and Jason was a new man, smiling, laughing, telling jokes, and being so loving, just like we used to be. I was happier than I'd been in a long time and reconsidered my plans for that date night again. I even told Brandy how things had changed, and that maybe I didn't need the experience anymore because Dad and I got our mojo back. Mom, that's great. But don't give up yet. Let's see how the next 2 weeks go. Just enjoy each other and see where it leads. No need to cancel anything just yet. Let's see how you feel after 2 weeks, and you can always cancel at the last minute. I'm sure Alexander would understand, but you need to realize that you may never have this chance again. Okay, you're probably right. Tell me more about Alexander. I know he's your friend's dad, but tell me again about his situation. Sure, Mom. When he learned his wife, Mary, had an inoperable brain tumor, he took a leave of absence from work and spent every second with her until the moment she died. She was the love of his life, and after her death he became a shell of his former self. Other than going to work, he never left the house and turned into a recluse, not talking to his family or friends. Her death created a hole in his heart he could not fill. For the last 3 years he's become depressed and a quiet man. When Mary and I suggested he get out and start dating, he explained there wasn't anyone he knew, or how to be with anyone except his wife Mary. Mom, listening to this wonderful man brought tears to my eyes, and it occurred to me I may have the solution for both of you. I told him about your deep love with Dad for 30 years, and how great a wife you've been. I told him how your love life had become stagnant over the years, and how Dad had slowed down as he grew older. I told him how we discussed going on a date for some excitement, not a long-term affair, but a friend to be with and maybe something more, but nothing long-term as you would never leave Dad. When he saw your photo, his eyes lit up and he smiled and asked me if I thought you would want to go out with him. Here's the conversation we had. Mr. Connor, I can assure you when I show my mom your photo, and tell her all about you, she would jump at the chance. She's a few years older than you, will that be a problem? Not if she looks like this, not at all. I'd love to spend some time with her. What about your dad? Would you really let her go out with me? I mean, it's his wife. Like I said, leave that to me. Daddy will do anything for Mom to make her happy, and she needs this as much as you do. I think you two can help each other and become good friends. Leave it to me and I'll set it up. I'll speak with her and if she agrees I'll give you her number, and then you can arrange the date and night together. Night? What do you mean? Mr. Connor, you two are adults. Both need each other. Be creative and plan for an evening and night together. So, you can see he thinks you're beautiful, and would love to spend the night with you if you are interested. I'll give him your cell phone number and tell him to call you during the day. He's really good looking and about 10 years younger than you, and I know you'll be happy. He just needs some companionship and a friend, and I know you can help each other. The next day Alexander called Maggie, and after a great conversation, he asked her to be his date and spend the night with him. She felt like a schoolgirl when he told her how pretty she was in the photo, and how wonderful it would be if she would go out with him. The excitement from doing something so different and his flirtations caused her panties to moisten. She felt a stirring as she listened to his deep baritone voice, and placed a finger over the material of her pants, and rubbed her pussy as she spoke with him. She accepted the date and told him she looked forward to meeting him. He told her he would pick her up, but she said she would rather meet him at the restaurant. They texted each other daily and flirted with each other more and more as their date night approached. By date night, Maggie's texts would not pass the most basic wife test. She found herself constantly aroused as she imagined what she was about to do. She made sure she didn't forget Jason, and put even more energy into their lovemaking every night. Jason was now walking around with a grin plastered to his face as Maggie walked around with a dripping pussy and an uncontrollable urge for sex. This was a new level of excitement which she enjoyed beyond her dreams. Chapter 3. Daddy, we have to talk. I loved my daughter and thought she was the prettiest girl in the world. I was so proud of her and how she developed into the woman she was today. I wished I had spent more time with her growing up, but I worked hard to provide them a great life, and made sure I was always there for her as much as I could be. I smiled when he saw her but was confused. Honey, what are you doing here and where's your mom? I said as she watched me put the 24 roses on the table along with a bottle of wine and box of chocolates. I have a special surprise for your mom tonight, and I can't wait to see her. Reaching into my jacket pocket, I took out the travel envelope and removed the travel plans and the 7-day cruise tickets. I'm taking your mom on the new Love Boat for a 7-day cruise, and I can't wait to see her face when she finds out. Don't say anything when she gets home, I want to surprise her. Daddy. Calling me daddy always made me smile as I remembered when she was a little girl and sat on my lap. But I knew something was wrong. There were tears in her eyes and she was all choked up, worrying about what I was about to hear. Daddy, we have to talk, she said as a tear fell from her eye. She saw the concern on my face. What's wrong? Did something happen to Mom? No, Mom's just fine. Please just sit down and let me explain. I sat down and looked into her tear-filled eyes as she struggled to continue. After a moment she started to speak. Daddy, you know how much Mom loves you, and she's told me how great things have been between the two of you lately. Yes, and I love her as well, and that's why I want to show her how I feel. Now, seeing her tears, I knew whatever she was going to tell me wasn't going as she had planned. I'm so sorry, Daddy, but Mom's out on a date. I sat there quietly hearing the words but not understanding their meaning. Her tears were flowing now as my brain connected the dots, bringing out a bit of anger. Brandy, what are you talking about? Where's your mother? I demanded in a loud voice which made her fearfully recoil away from me. Mom really loves you, Daddy, and you might take this the wrong way, but Mom went on a date with another man and won't be home until tomorrow. She couldn't tell you herself, and I volunteered to break it to you because she couldn't stand to hurt you. It's only one night and mom will be back tomorrow. Is this a joke? You can't be serious. Your mother would never do anything to betray me like that. She's been so loving and we've been so close. I don't believe it. Daddy, she loves you and just needed to do this one thing. After 30 years of marriage, she wasn't feeling good about herself and needed something more in her life, just one time. Nothing will change between you, except she will love you even more for giving her this. I fix an intense glare at my daughter. Brandy, why are you involved? Your mother should never have brought you into this, and I need to discuss this with her, not you. How does she get you in the middle of all this? Daddy, you know that mom and I have always been very close, and we tell each other everything. She told me how things have slowed down in the bedroom between you two, and how she didn't feel desirable anymore and needed some excitement. My friend's dad lost his wife a few years ago. He's been so depressed and also needed some companionship, and I kind of introduced them. I quickly stood up, knocking my chair over behind me. What the fuck? Are you kidding? You introduced them and arranged for your mother to date another man. Is that what you're saying? With her head lowered, her eyes looking at the floor, she didn't speak. I was now pacing back and forth in the kitchen trying to wrap my head around this train wreck. God damn it, Brandy. Answer me. I yelled, now standing over her. Did you set this up? My wife, your mother, is on a date with your friend's dad, and you arranged it. Spit flew out of my mouth with these angry words. I'm so sorry, Daddy, but yes. When you say it like that it sounds bad, but I did it out of love for mom and my friend's dad. Holy hell, what have you done? Love for your mom and your friend's dad. What about your love for me? What am I, trash you can shit on and expect me to accept whatever comes my way? Where is she now? And what did you mean, she won't be home until tomorrow? Daddy, he took her to a restaurant, I'm not sure which one, and then they're spending the night together, but just this one time. She'll be back tomorrow and Daddy, she loves only you. That's all she kept telling me for the last 2 weeks is how she loves you, and didn't want you to be hurt by this. It's only a date, and one night away. She knew you would understand and give her this one time. So, that's it. I'm a sucker for believing the last 2 weeks her renewed attentions were out of love, but now you're telling me it was her way of expunging her guilt and making me her cuckold. Well, this isn't going to work out well for anyone, I can assure you of that. Still in tears she pleaded with her father, Daddy, it's not like that at all. She would never fake her love or hurt you in any way. Just the opposite, she did all she could to let you know she loves you. Daddy, can't you just give her this one night? You know she loves you and can't live without you. She told me how she is looking forward to your retirement and spending time together with your grandchildren. Mike and I are planning to start our family and we need both of you. Well, isn't that just fucking special? That ship sailed the moment she accepted a date with some man that wasn't me. Who is this guy? My friend Mary's dad. He's really a nice guy and you like him, Daddy. I think you two have a lot in common. Oh yes, we could be such good buddies. So, you think I could become friends with a man that would knowingly date a married woman, my wife? Maybe we can become drinking buddies and I can let him fuck your mom on the weekends. Is that what you two have planned for me? Brandy sank in her chair, realizing her plan had a serious flaw. She had never seen me so angry and speak to her like that. Chills ran down her spine as she cowered from my rage. As I paced around the room, I finally regained control of my emotions, turned to my daughter and spoke in a venomous voice. A voice she never wanted to hear again. My hurt and pain were apparent and made her feel small and guilty for her part in all of this. Listen closely to me, Brandy, I need you to leave now. I need some time alone to understand what the two of you have done to me tonight. I don't want to see or hear from you. Don't call me. Don't text me. Ever. Your betrayal is unforgivable, and as of now I don't have a daughter. You're dead to me. Do you understand what that means? I'm no longer your father, and I have no daughter. Now get out of my house, and never speak to me again. Brandy was openly sobbing with her head in her hands. Daddy, please don't say that. I love you and want to stay here tonight. Mom and I planned for me to stay with you. We don't want you to be alone. Brandy, the level of disrespect you've shown me makes me wonder if you ever respected or loved me as your father. You are your mother's daughter. All these years I've spent working like a dog to give you and your mother the best life possible. This is the thanks I get. No, it turns out that I've only been here as your meal ticket, and apparently never earned any respect from either of you. Between her tears and sobs she continued, Daddy, I do love you. Please don't say that. Just let Mom have this and let her explain tomorrow. You've had 30 great years together and I know you love her. Just give her this one thing, she's not going to leave you, Daddy. She loves you. She can have her one thing, two things, or 1,000 things, but she will never have me again. This is beyond my capacity for forgiveness. There will be hell to pay to all parties involved, including the lonely man that took my wife, a married woman. Now, leave. You've shown your true colors. You still have your mom, nothing will change for you, the two of you were meant for each other. As I said, Brandy, in my heart, you are no longer my daughter, now please just leave me alone. As tears rolled down her face, she literally ran out of the house in pain. Pain she had never felt before. She never considered her daddy would respond like that. Did he really disown her? For the first time she realized that she may have crossed the line in helping her mom with this idea. She knew he loved both of them, and could clearly see he was angry, no, furious, and prayed he would forgive them. Jason takes action. Right after Brandy left, I called Maggie's cell phone, which went straight to voicemail. I left her several messages begging her to call me and to come home. Then after several drinks and no return calls, I left several texts with the same message. No response. At 2 a.m. I realized she was not coming home and had no intention of returning my calls. I was tired of feeling sorry for myself, and just stared at the TV, which happened to be broadcasting more bad news. My world had turned to shit in the blink of an eye. I considered our 30 years together, the good times, the birth of our daughter, all the parties and graduations, Brandy's wedding, and the closeness we all shared, now gone forever. Before her betrayal, Maggie and I still had sex 2 to 3 times per week. Yes, it became routine and not as exciting as it was 30 years earlier, but there were never any complaints, and in fact, we always cuddled and held each other after sex, and fell asleep in each other's arms. There wasn't a day or a phone call where we didn't leave each other by saying, "I love you," and we rarely fought. Looking out the window, I found myself staring at the art studio I built for Maggie to support her hobby. For the last 20 years she spent most of her time creating wonderful paintings and sculptures in that studio, winning several awards for her artwork, which were on display in the room I built to exhibit all of her awards and paintings. It became a shrine to my wife's work and her sanctuary. I always felt that besides her daughter, that damn studio was the most important thing in her world. At best, I was third on her importance list, but I loved her, and I was fine with that as long as she was happy. The talk with Brandy hit me hard. This revelation about her needing to go out with another man hit me completely by surprise and without a shred of warning. Apparently, all the years of long hours at work providing for the family kept me too busy to see that she wasn't satisfied with me or marriage. Doing this to us without talking to me, and instead sharing this with Brandy, was humiliating and fueled my anger. I reflected on my life, my home, and my future. I inherited my home and property from my grandfather, and it was in my name before we were married. There was no mortgage on the property, which got me thinking. In my drunken state, with my anger spiking, I started to consider ways to hurt Maggie like she hurt me tonight. As I continued to look out the window at her studio, the devil sitting on my shoulder whispered in my ear. Maybe it was the alcohol, maybe it was the pain from the betrayal, or the humiliation in front of my daughter that I was feeling, but I was suddenly energized. With that renewed energy, I jumped off the couch and replaced my sorrow with action. I made over a dozen trips to her bedroom and gathered every piece of her belongings, and brought them to the studio. All of her expensive shoes, dresses, clothes, lingerie, jewelry, and everything that belonged to her was now on the floor, in the middle of her sanctuary, the art studio. For the next hour, I went through the house and collected every photo album, including all of our wedding photos, and placed them on top of the growing pile. Then I remembered she had some items in the attic, which were vacuum sealed. I found her wedding dress, baby clothes, and many more sentimental items, and dragged them to the pile, which was now about 4 feet tall. It's amazing how much one person can collect over the years. Then I took all her paintings off the wall, and placed them on the pile. The sculptures, all of her sketchbooks, and everything she loved was now part of the growing mound of items. It was now 5 a.m. and I was still jacked up. I told myself I would not do anything until 6 a.m., giving her a chance to come home or return my calls and texts. If I didn't get any response, or she was not home, I was going to finish what I started. I went through the house one more time, making sure I had everything she owned and cared for plight in the studio. At 5:30 I took the 5-gallon can of gasoline from the garage, and made my way out to the studio, preparing for the 6 a.m. deadline. During this time, I went online and canceled joint credit cards and moved money in our accounts, took the cash out of the safe and packed a few suitcases. I then placed them in my truck, as I would be spending some time away until the attorneys figured things out. I waited an extra 5 minutes for her to return, and at 6:05, I gave up my last bit of hope and poured the gasoline on the pile and along the walls of the studio. With a deep sigh, and after a few seconds of hesitation, I made the decision and threw a lit match on the floor, which instantly ignited the pile of her treasures. The fire spread quickly, and before I left the driveway the flames were already noticeable from the street. The fire quickly consumed her world and everything she loved. As I drove down the highway, a sudden realization struck me, magnified by the terrible state I was in. A terrible sadness engulfed me, and tears began streaming down my face. In that moment, it became clear that my once beautiful marriage had met the same fate as the studio. It had gone up in flames. What I didn't anticipate is the fire jumping from the studio to the back porch, which went up in flames along with the art studio. Fortunately, the firemen working on the studio were able to put out the fire on the porch and save the home. The home had serious smoke damage and would be unlivable until the damage could be repaired. While all this was happening, I had checked into a Motel 6 along the highway about 90 miles from the smoldering ashes that was once my marriage, and paid with cash. I didn't want to be found until I was able to think straight, and using credit cards would have made it easy if the police were looking for me. I hadn't slept and was running on adrenaline until I opened the door to my room. I shut off my phone and collapsed on the bed, falling into a deep sleep, and didn't wake up until the next afternoon. My phone started to light up once I turned it on. I had dozens of missed calls and text messages from Brandy, Maggie, and the sheriff. Chapter 3. Maggie's date. After getting out of the Uber, I met Alexander at the restaurant and was nervous and excited to see this handsome young man waiting for me at the hostess desk. He smiled when he saw me, admiring my little black dress, black sheer pantyhose, and matching high heel pumps. His eyes were drawn to my exposed cleavage enhanced by my black shelf bra. I spent hours at the salon earlier in the day having my hair and makeup done to perfection. I wanted this one-time thing to be exciting and memorable and perfect for him. My date seemed satisfied by what he saw, and the way he fixed his hardening manhood emphasized his reaction. My confidence grew knowing he liked what he saw and welcomed his tender kiss as he greeted me. We started at the bar and sat on one of the bar stools, and as I scooted up, I saw him peek at my nylon-covered legs all the way to my exposed panties. We both smiled as he ordered our drinks. I decided to turn my phone off so nothing would interrupt the night's activities. I knew this night would never happen again, and I was going to enjoy every moment. We had chemistry together and got along as if we were old friends. I found myself touching his arm and flirting, which was not something I usually did with anyone, including Jason. But I was going to let my inner slut free tonight and enjoy the experience. As we were finishing our second drink, the cute hostess informed us our table was ready and escorted us to our seats. Dinner was wonderful, and I was enjoying the conversation and our time together. When he asked me if I still wanted to spend the night with him, I removed one of my heels and placed my foot between his legs. I started rubbing the material of his pants as my toes massaged his crotch, as his cock hardened from my playful teasing. When he looked down at my red toenails peeking through the sheer nylon covering my foot rubbing his cock, he smiled and said it's time to leave. Holding hands, he led me to his hotel room which he had already arranged. When the elevator opened at the 14th floor, I realized what I was about to do, and thoughts of Jason suddenly entered my head. He must have noticed, because he pulled me into his strong body. When I looked up at him, he gave me a romantic kiss, the likes of which I hadn't experienced before. That was all it took for me to forget my husband and my marriage. I was going to be his tonight, and enjoy this experience. Once in the room, he wasted no time and unzipped my dress. As it fell to the floor, he removed his clothes and stood before me exposing his rock-hard cock. He spun me around and told me how sexy I looked, and then removed my bra and lowered me to the bed. I don't know how long it lasted, but Alexander made love to my breast and nipples with his tongue. It was so sensual and loving that I felt my pussy dripping with anticipation of things to come. I took his cock in my hand and felt his heat and hardness as I got on my knees and worshipped his beautiful tool for the next 10 minutes. He couldn't take it anymore and forcefully removed my pantyhose and ordered me to put my heels back on, because he found it so sexy. This made me feel a little naughty, and being told how sexy it was brought out my inner slut. Then he effortlessly picked me up as if I was a rag doll. As he stood tall, he then positioned me so my legs wrapped around his body. He then did something I've never experienced before. As he started kissing me, he slowly lowered me onto his cock. As our tongues continued to explore each other's mouths, I felt the tip of his cock pressing on my pussy lips. Then slowly his throbbing manhood entered me as I let out a gentle moan into his mouth. Still lip-locked, he then lowered me until I was completely impaled by his engorged cock, and that's when I experienced my first of many orgasms that night. I'd never orgasmed so fast or hard for Jason, and found myself comparing this man to my husband. I knew that wasn't good, and quickly put Jason out of my mind, and only focused on this handsome man who was now pounding me into oblivion, still standing beside the bed. Alexander then threw me down onto the bed without disengaging. He was strong, hard, and fast as his cock continued to piston in and out of my wet pussy. He kissed me several times as we fucked, bringing out several more orgasms. This man was an Olympic kisser. I briefly thought, I have to get Jason to do that, it's so sexy. Shit, more comparisons. Stop it. Then I felt him tense up and raise his head as we looked into each other's eyes. He started fucking me faster, and just as he exploded deep inside me, I felt his cock pulsating deep inside me, and I knew he was filling me with his semen. As he was shooting his seed inside my pussy, he continued to look deep into my eyes and said, "I love you, Maggie." This was unexpected, and his words touched my heart. The sensations and the passion brought me the most intense orgasm I'd ever experienced. I can only describe it as a religious experience, and so powerful that I was overwhelmed with tears of joy. We made love 4 more times that night and once more in the morning, each as intense as the previous time. It was by far the best sexual experience of my life, and I was happy with myself for allowing this time with Alexander to happen. Thoughts of Jason were starting to bring me back to reality, but I tried to focus on the man holding me as much as I could. As we lay there with the sun peeking through the curtains, he kissed me gently and stroked my hair. "Maggie, I meant what I said last night. You're an amazing woman, so sexy and sensual, and I think I love you and want to spend more time with you. Can I see you again?" Suddenly I became concerned and tried to be gentle. "Alexander, it was the best sex I've ever had, and you're a wonderful, sweet man, but I'm happily married and can't do this again. This was a one-time experience and I loved it and you were amazing. You're a wonderful lover and I enjoyed every second. Maggie, think about it before you say no. Your husband seems to be okay with this, and if you allow things to continue, I can make you a very happy woman. Just think about it before you say no, please." "Okay, yes. I'll think about it, but that's the best I can do right now." With another deep kiss, he held me tight as I melted into his arms. If I wasn't married to Jason, I would be with this man in a heartbeat. But Jason was my husband, and I hoped he could forgive me for what I just did. Maggie returns home. After breakfast we left the hotel, and as he drove me home, I turned on my phone for the first time since my date started last night. I was shocked to see all the missed calls and text messages. I saw Jason's text and felt a pang of guilt stab me in my heart. The dear man was hurting and I wasn't there for him. I felt a tear in my eye realizing his pain was caused by me. Then, before I could go to my next text, the phone rang as Alexander turned into my neighborhood. "Mother, where are you?" "Hi baby, I'm almost home." "Mother, there was a fire at your house. We tried to call you all night, but I guess you shut your phone off." "A fire? Where's your dad?" "That's just it, Mom, he's gone. Nobody knows where he is and he's not answering his phone either. I have a bad feeling about this, Mom." "I'm almost there. I'll call you back." When Alexander turned the corner to my street, I saw the fire truck and police in front of our house. From the front of the house, I didn't see any damage and asked the fireman what happened. "Are you the homeowner?" he asked as all the neighbors were watching me as I stood with the unknown handsome man, my date. "Yes, I'm Maggie Spencer." "Well, Mrs. Spencer, we were able to save the home with only damage to the back porch, but I'm afraid you won't be able to stay here until you can call for a cleanup from the smoke damage inside your home. The main damage was to the small cottage behind your home. I'm afraid it's a total loss." I felt my legs give out as Alexander caught me and helped me sit down on the curb. "My studio. Is it damaged?" "Sorry, Mrs. Spencer, there's nothing left but smoldering ashes. We'll be investigating the cause of the fire, but for now the police detective has some questions for you." I quickly stood and ran to the back of the property before Sergeant Wilson could ask me any questions. He caught up with me as I stood in front of the remains of my most prized possession. I immediately realized that Jason must have done this as revenge for my actions. "Mrs. Spencer, do you have any idea what happened here?" Sergeant Wilson asked. No, I was away last night and I have no idea. Are you her husband? He said, turning to Alexander. No, just her friend. I felt my face turn red with embarrassment when the sergeant gave me a knowing look and asked where my husband was. I told him I didn't know. When he asked where I was last night, I shyly said I was with Alexander at the Hilton downtown. The looks I got from the sergeant and his assistant made me realize the seriousness of my situation. I just admitted that I spent the night with a man other than my husband, who was now missing. The detective now had questions. Mrs. Spencer, are you and your husband estranged? Would you know where he was last night? No, we're a happily married couple, and I realized how stupid that sounded after admitting I spent the night with another man. Do you know where he is? No, he's not answering his phone. We will want to speak to him, so when you talk to him, please give him my number, he said, handing me his card. I was shaking with anger and fear. Anger at the loss of my sanctuary and all the years of the works I've created. All gone, forever. Fear of the thought that Jason could be so angry as to do this and what that means to my marriage. I had to speak with him as soon as possible. I called Brandy. Brandy, do you know where your father is? No, I haven't spoken to him since last night. Why didn't you stay here with him as we planned? Mom, he threw me out and told me I wasn't his daughter any longer. Hearing those words sent a chill through my body. Jason would never say anything like that, and if he did, this was going to be much worse than I ever anticipated. I entered the house to see the smoke damage on the walls, and how terrible the smell permeated our home. Clearly there was no way to live here under these conditions. I made my way through our home and decided to get some clothes and some personal items for a few days. When I entered the bedroom and saw everything gone, I panicked. I realized that all of my clothes, shoes, and personal items were missing. My heart sank into my stomach when I looked over at the night table for my wedding rings. They were gone. Why did I leave my rings behind? What was I thinking? If Jason saw them on my dresser, he must have thought I abandoned him and our marriage. How stupid and selfish could I have been? In a complete panic, I ran through the house looking in each room, and realized that all of my belongings were missing. I suddenly had a terrible thought. Did he burn everything? Is there nothing left? I ran out of the house and back to the studio to take a closer look at the remains. I saw the frames from the paintings in the middle of the room and parts of clothing that hadn't been completely destroyed. It was apparent that Jason did not accept my one-off as expected, and in fact destroyed everything important to me, and in one fell swoop removed me from his life. I called Brandy, crying, and told her what happened, and that I needed a place to stay. Alexander quickly offered to let me stay with him, but he was the last person on earth I wanted to see, and I told him I needed to be alone and please leave. He was hurt at my vitriol and left me standing there in tears. At that moment I was angry at myself and the man I spent the night with. I knew I was wrong, but I blamed him for my selfish act of betrayal, when the blame was clearly on me. Brandy, I've lost your dad. Mom, don't say that. Daddy loves you. Honey, he burned everything. All my clothes, my paintings, my studio. Everything. He's left me nothing, not even a place to live. He wouldn't answer his phone or return my calls. I hurt him in the worst way and I don't blame him. What I've done is unforgivable. I should have never gone on that date, and just told him how I was feeling. We could have worked it out, but my selfishness has driven him away. If I were in his place, I'd never be able to take him back. What do I do now? I have no place to live or any clothing for that matter. Mom, don't blame yourself. This is partly my fault, and you can live with us until your house gets restored. We can buy some new clothes this afternoon and get you settled in tonight. Brandy, all my paintings and my sculptures are gone. 30 years of marriage and 20 years of my life's work have been destroyed, and I'm alone. I have nothing to live for. Maggie was openly sobbing as the neighbors looked on from the road. Oh my God, your father's calling me now. I'll call you back. Fumbling with the buttons, desperately trying to answer her phone, the call almost disconnected, but at the last second, she was able to connect the call. Jason, is it you? Hello Maggie, how are things going? Jason, where are you? Please come home, we have to talk. No Maggie, I know all about it from your daughter. Yes, your daughter, not mine. Both of you are dead to me, and this will probably be the last time we ever speak. Jason, no, please don't say that. I love you. You must know that. Jason, the studio is gone. Did you do that? Maggie, you did it. Not me. Maybe not physically, but it burned down at the hands of your treachery and betrayal. When I saw your wedding rings left behind while you gave yourself to another, you died in my heart. Your actions are unforgivable, and involving Brandy was humiliating and beyond comprehension. We are done. I'll be meeting with attorneys on Monday and starting the process. Please, Jason, can't we talk and work through this? You can't just throw our 30 wonderful years away like this. Maggie, we are talking and it's not me that threw our 30 wonderful years away. You planned to betray and gave me 2 weeks of amazing love as a way to ease your guilt, and then cuckolded me with the help of your daughter. There is no man on God's green earth that could accept those actions or forgive and forget that level of treachery and betrayal. It was pure evil, and I pray you will regret your actions for the rest of your miserable life. This will be the last time we speak. You can reach me through my attorney's contact info that will be attached to the divorce decree. Goodbye, Maggie. Jason, no wait. Jason. Jason was gone, and so was the world I loved and cherished. Brandy arrived just as I was holding the phone calling out to Jason, who had already disconnected. We held each other as we both cried for our loss. We finally understood we couldn't stay at the wreckage that was my home, while the firefighters and police investigated and needed to figure things out, and left for Brandy's home. When we arrived at Brandy's home, she explained everything to Mike, who was shocked at her explanation of events. Brandy tried to explain the entire story, but when Mike learned that his wife had arranged the date with her friend's dad, he was shocked and disgusted, and his anger flared. Brandy, you arranged for a date with another man for your mother, and on top of that you knew your father would be alone. You must have known he would not accept this. What type of man would allow his wife to go on a date with another man? Is that what you'll do when we're older? Will you willingly cuckold me, like your mom did to your dad? He was such a great guy, and you and your mom were his world. What have you done, Brandy? I'll tell you what you've done. You've destroyed a good man, and made him do unthinkable things. I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I am with you, Brandy. I'm going to reach out to him and apologize for your stupidity. When this is over, you and I are going to have a long talk about our future together. Having children with you is officially on hold until I better understand your values. Let me be clear, I don't share, and I will never stand for this type of betrayal. She was shocked by his anger and surprised he didn't understand her mother's situation. It was only one date, after 30 years, for God's sakes. What's the big deal? She learned later that the big deal was the end of her parents' marriage, the loss of her dad, and her mom's happy life. Soon they would all learn the consequences of her actions. Chapter 4. Jason's return. 5 long days later, I returned to my home to do an assessment of the damage. I was not going to file an insurance claim because I did not want to add any more potential charges to what I had already accomplished. In my meeting with the attorney, I explained that the home was mine and not part of the settlement. Maggie could have half of our savings and no alimony. If she fought the claim, I would file under adultery and let everyone know how she cheated on me with her daughter's friend. I had already met with my attorney and started the divorce paperwork. Then I asked for the name of a criminal defense attorney related to the arson, but after meeting with them understood that since I owned the property, there would most likely be no criminal charges, unless I filed an insurance claim, which I was not about to do. In the worst case, there may be fines from the fire department, but no criminal charges would make it through the courts, unless a false claim had been filed. One of our neighbors who Brandy went to school with, called Brandy when she saw me come home and enter the house. Brandy quickly drove over to see me. I was looking at the damage and estimating the work necessary to make the house livable again when I heard the front door open. Daddy. Dad, where are you? I heard Brandy yelling as she entered the house. I didn't answer and continued my assessment of the damage. I smiled as I looked out the window and saw the pile of ashes that was once Maggie's sanctuary. When Brandy found me in one of the bedrooms, she quickly ran to me and held me tightly. Daddy. I'm so sorry. Please forgive us. We love you. Brandy, I will never forgive either of you, and I told you never to speak to me again. Now please let me go and leave me alone. No. You're my dad and you have to forgive me. I'm your only daughter and you love me. Pay attention. I no longer have a daughter, only a treacherous woman that broke my heart. You are not my daughter now, please leave me in peace. Daddy, Mom needs you. She's staying with us and misses you so much. She cries all the time and wants to apologize to you for her mistake. Will you please come to my house and see her? Not going to happen. The moment she went on that date and spent the night with another man, she ended our marriage. Hell, she even left her wedding rings on the table, which signified the end of our marriage. It's over, and I will not speak with her again. Both of you can reach me through my attorney. I will be getting a new phone and number later today, but in the meantime, you best go be with your slut mother. Are you really going to throw away 30 years of being happily married to mom? No, I'm not. Your mom threw away those 30 years the minute she removed her rings and went off with her lover. It's you and your mom that destroyed my 30 happy years, and for that I will never forgive or forget. Now get out of my house. For the second time, Brandy ran out of her childhood home in tears. The pain of hearing her daddy say she's no longer his daughter was devastating and heartbreaking. Years of therapy would never remove the hurt from his words. Maggie was served the divorce papers the following day and collapsed when she realized her marriage was over, due to her selfish act of infidelity. She tried to fight it, tried for counseling, tried to talk with Jason, without any success. He would not speak with her or Brandy again. Mike did reach Jason and expressed his anger and frustration at what the girls had done. He told him that he was reconsidering starting a family due to Brandy's sense of fidelity and her part in what she did to Jason. There was no way Mike was going to live with a woman that thought like that and was in the process of couples counseling to see if they could save their own marriage. Maggie wanted to move back home after Jason had it restored, but the divorce agreement outlined that the house was Jason's and not part of the divorce settlement, and she would need to find her own place to live. In court, the judge ended up getting half of their savings and $3,000 per month alimony for 10 years, which she had no intention of paying. Maggie would have to find a job and support herself, which she hadn't needed to do for the previous 30 years of their marriage. She eventually moved out of her daughter's apartment and into a small studio apartment near downtown, where she found a job at a small art gallery as a sales agent to make ends meet. Maggie's artistic freedom was suddenly derailed. No longer would she be able to spend all of her time in the wonderful studio Jason had built for her. She would no longer be able to sit in front of her art projects and enjoy the beautiful view of the lake from the large picture windows her husband gave her. Soon she would be too busy working and using her free time to have a small resemblance of her former life. All of her free time was gone, along with her luxuries and her happy marriage, all for a night of excitement with another man. She would never find enough tears to undo all the hurt and pain her one-time experience created. No, her loving husband, Jason, would never speak to her again. Hearing how he disowned their daughter left her heartbroken and sad. Brandy fell into a deep depression over the fallout to her father and her parents' marriage. She sought therapy to cope with the pain and to save her own marriage that was now on the rocks. A few months later, the home was restored. Jason continued to pay the court-ordered settlement and sold the property without notice to anyone. One day after the sale, Maggie stopped by to see him to try and reconcile and ask for forgiveness. When she rang the bell, she was greeted by a young couple that answered the door. "Hi, can we help you?" the woman asked. "Yes, I'm looking for Jason Spencer. Is he here?" "Oh, the nice man that sold us this home." "No, he said he was leaving the country to start a new life. He was such a nice man and so helpful. Are you Maggie, by chance?" "Yes, I am. He left an envelope and made us promise to give it to you if you ever stopped by." "Thank you, I'll read it later. Good luck and enjoy this wonderful home." Maggie sat in her car and cried, knowing she would never see Jason again, and for the love she had so carelessly thrown away. After driving back to her lonely apartment, she sat in bed, her hands shaking as she opened the letter. "Maggie, 30 wonderful years. I'll always remember the wonderful life we had together. You were my first and only love, and I'm so sorry I failed as your husband. If I knew you needed more, I would have moved heaven and earth for you, but since you choose to find your way alone, that's how we will end our marriage alone. After the 2 wonderful weeks before your betrayal, I actually believed you fell back in love with me. Those weeks were the happiest times I've had with you in years. When Brandy explained how you used those weeks to soothe my soul from your treachery, it crushed my soul. I'm sure your daughter already told you, but that night I was so excited to come home and treat you to a special night. With 24 roses, your favorite chocolates and wine, I was going to surprise you with a new Love Boat cruise. I felt like a fool and humiliated when I learned your love and adoration was fake, and your real purpose was to be with another man. Congratulations, you destroyed me and our marriage. Because of this I can't stay in this town any longer. I've quit my job and found a new life in another country. Don't bother looking for me, as I will be off the grid and really don't want to speak with you or your daughter ever again. That part of my life is over, and I will start a new life without you. The pain and betrayal both of you have caused will take years for me to get past. There was no way I could stay in this wonderful house without the love of my life and wonderful daughter. Since they are now both dead to me, there is no reason to remain here. I sincerely hope your special night was worth our marriage and my love. I suspect it was, and I'm sure you and your daughter will enjoy the stories you will share. Have a shitty life, and please forget about me and our years together. I already have. My new life has already started without any of you. JS. She actually believed there were no more tears left to cry, but after reading his letter she sobbed uncontrollably for the entire night, curled up in a fetal position. The excitement and memory of the amazing sex with Alexander was a distant memory, now replaced by regret and sorrow. Now, at the age of 52 and alone, she realized her future without Jason was bleak. She had thrown her luxurious life away for one night of selfish excitement. Jason meets Alexander. Alexander had a late-night visit from Jason, the night he was leaving for his new home in Ecuador. When the door opened, Jason pushed his way into his house and introduced himself as the husband of the woman he took from him. Alexander tried to explain that he thought he was cool with Maggie being with him, and never would have pursued her if he thought he wasn't. But it was too late, and Jason didn't acknowledge any of his excuses. All the anger, rage, and pain he'd lived with for the last months were directed at the predator in front of him. The conversation was quick as Jason used the crowbar he held in his right hand to cave in the left side of Alexander's face. Seeing the 6-inch gash on his face, Jason knew that his good looks were no longer one of his assets, and would be a lasting reminder of his night with Maggie. Alexander would need reconstruction surgery on his face and 2 knee replacements. Jason looked down at the wincing man and said, "Word of advice, asshole, fucking a married woman is not good for your health." By the time Alexander arrived at the emergency room and told the police what happened, Jason was already on his way to his new condo on the beach in the Manabi province. His new life was about to start without any previous baggage or family. It took the police detectives 2 weeks to discover that Jason was no longer in the country and unable to touch him unless he came back home. Even if they managed to find him, there would be no extradition for an assault charge in Ecuador. Alexander spent 2 painful weeks in the hospital and many months in physical therapy, learning how to walk with his new knees. To his regret, the 25 stitches in his face would leave a lasting reminder of that one night with a married woman. He wasn't sure what, if any, sex life he would have after losing both testicles, but he knew the life he once had was over, thanks to those 2 women who convinced him to take another man's wife. He never spoke to or saw Maggie or Brandy again. Brandy's husband, Mike, almost divorced Brandy over the incident, but the couple's counselor helped Brandy understand what she had done, and promised her loyalty to Mike and their future family. Mike waited 2 years before agreeing to children, to convince himself his wife would never betray him as she had to her dad. True to his word and her regret, Jason never spoke to Brandy again. By her actions, she threw away her daddy and his love forever. Maggie and Brandy were devastated when they learned of Alexander's beating, and felt responsible for the attack, which added to the guilt and pain they caused Jason and the ruination of their family. It was another reminder that their actions had far-reaching consequences that they never anticipated. They both realized their delusional thinking that if only Jason allowed Maggie this one time, their happy life would have continued, was wrong. Nothing further from the truth was the result of their stupidity. Losing their daddy and husband was a deep hurt they would live with for the rest of their lives. Between her depression and her age, she never found another man to be with and lived a lonely, sad life. All of her plans for a happy retirement with Jason and their grandchildren were now a distant memory. Since Jason stopped the alimony payments once he left the country, her savings would not last long, and she would need to keep working to survive. Crying herself to sleep became a normal activity. Jason's new life in Ecuador. I now have over $750,000 in US dollars from the sale of my home, and monies I saved during the last 30 years after the purchase of my new condo. With that amount of money here in Ecuador, my next 30 years will be lived in comfort and peace. There are plenty of young, pretty women here who appreciate a generous American, and I enjoy being with all of them. 6 months after that horrific night, I found myself on Puerto Lopez Beach, across from my new condo, drinking a cold beer, and came to the realization that divorce is okay. Breaking up is okay. Being alone is okay. What is not okay is staying somewhere you're not valued and appreciated. That was never going to happen again. Thanks for listening to this story, and thanks to Cindy TV for sharing it. And see, I didn't split this story to 2 parts, as long as some of you asked me to never do it again. I'm doing it only if I don't have enough time, cause I want to produce videos consistently. So appreciate you all. See you soon.